Practically Culture Spoilercast, a podcast devoted to diving deeper on the TV and movies, maybe sometimes the video games that we and you are into. I'm your host, Logan Bowe, podcasting from Salt Lake City, and I'm joined by the one, the only Bob Caswell in the Bay Area. How are you, Bob?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well. How's it going with you?
Just hanging out. You know me.
Whew, good, nice.
This week we spoil Sorry to Bother You, and we'll also talk about what we're consuming and even make a top 5 or so list by the end. If you like what you hear, look for us in your usual podcast app and at practicallyculture.com and also on YouTube. As you may not know, we were throwing out the video on this. We recommend you check it all out if you're into the show. We're spoiling TV, movies, probably sometimes video games. It's the Practically Culture Spoilercast. Let's rock. Oh, man, it's good to be back, Bob. And here's our second episode here in our grand unveiling week. Feeling good about this so far?
Yeah, I love the idea. I love the execution, if I do say so myself. And I'm having a good time. That's what matters, right? Sort of.
Sounds good to me. We do this for us, after all, right?
That's right. Yeah.
I'm still excited about it. I think our first one, which should be available already, Church and State, I would think it went okay.
Yeah, it's a little different. It's starting on a documentary, so I'm glad that it's not a documentary spoiler cast exclusively. But when we do have documentaries to talk about, we will. I don't know what I'm trying to say there. I'm excited to talk about real movies too.
Right on. Well, before we get into the spoiling, let's chat a bit about what we are watching or maybe playing. I'll even go first. So right. I finished Barry. We did that on the main show. A little bit. I mini reviewed it, but I could be talked into maybe spoiler casting it. I don't know. Maybe it's a little old. I'm getting going. Hopefully, finishing up Succession soon, which I definitely think we should take on. And even later, hopefully.
For sure. I saw Succession. I was going to say spoiler alert, but in the way that people don't mean it, because I was just going to say I really liked it, but you'll have to hear later why I liked it. So it's just a tease.
All right. And I started watching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Oh, yeah?
He's been getting some buzz lately. The jury's out for me on it, but it certainly has some potential. But I'll keep you informed if I want that to be one that I drag you into spoiler casting about.
Okay. It had a false start in our household. We gave it like 2 episodes. It's very stage play, like manufactured in a way, but it's charming, but maybe not. We're not sure.
Okay. Well, like I say, it's a maybe for me so far, but I started it.
Nice. Well, I saw Mamma Mia, but it's not worth spoiling because there's nothing to spoil. But it's in our main show. So if you want to hear more about, what I have to say there, and I'm starting to play more PlayStation games. So I beat Uncharted 4. I mini reviewed that over on our other show. But I'm also going to be playing some other games. I'm also playing right now, and this is on all platforms, but I'm playing it on Xbox, We Happy Few. It's kind of a dystopian, retro recreation of 1960s England with Germany sort of winning, but not entirely. And everybody's taking happy pills to stay without memories because a happy country is one with no past. So
interesting. Is that one you think you might want to make me spoiler cast with you? Should I get on it?
I mean, it definitely has a story worthy of wider discussion. The gameplay is a little finicky, in my opinion, so I'm not sure I want to put you through the whole experience because it would definitely not be entirely pleasant, but it's getting some buzz in terms of what it's trying to accomplish.
Okay, well, I'll keep an eye out. Maybe it'll make the cut for 1 or 2 a week, sometimes a spoiler cast.
That's right. Sounds good.
Well, ready to get to this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sorry to Bother You is up, and in an alternate present-day version of Oakland, telemarketer Cassius Green discovers a magical key to professional success, propelling him into a universe of greed, starring Keith Stanfield, Tessa Thompson, Jermaine Fowler, and Armie Hammer, written and directed by Boots Riley. What did you think of this one, Bob?
Well, I had a lot of thoughts on this one. I thought it was clever when it was clever. But I thought it was pretty messy when it was messy. And the whole thing about capitalism and racism, sure, yeah, those aren't things.
Those exist.
Those exist, and I'd like to think that I'd like them to be better in both cases. Maybe less racism in the world and capitalism with less unintended consequences, let's say. I don't know that this movie changed my opinion on maybe how to go about that, or I don't know where I'm going. So I'd sum it up by saying it's original, it's scatterbrained, and it's incoherent. But it's original. We'll start with the positive, I suppose.
So I didn't hear any like or recommend or anything like that in that.
Oh yeah, right. Like is a strong word for this movie. Not dislike is more. I'm more comfortable if we're going to use words, and I definitely wouldn't recommend it for almost anyone except for like movie people, because there's just nothing like it. I mean, it's batshit crazy, and you definitely want to see it if you're trying to, fill out the bingo card of being comprehensive and what's possible to put on a screen. But I don't know if it's for everyone.
But that's a different thing than you recommending it. I got it.
Yeah.
So I'm not too far off. I mean, we've already done our review on the other show, but now we're really going to get into it.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
we're going to spoil the shit out of this thing.
it's disorienting, and it tries to be subversive, and on purpose. I think it's trying to be in your face, trying to make you question things about movies, and also in so doing about your racism and your capitalism. I do think those are the main themes, like you say. I will say it's really funny in a lot of places.
Yeah, especially the first half, for sure.
Especially the first half, fair enough. And I liked it okay, but that's a different question for me than is it good?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's good. I can't tell. But is it completely successful is my other question, and I do have an answer for that one, and I'm going to say no.
Right. I like the way you frame that. I could co-sign liking it with the caveat of it's probably not good. That actually speaks volumes. That's a pretty good description.
But so we're new to the Spoilercast thing still. We're having a good time, but we don't have our routine down 100% yet. But for this one, here's how I think I want to approach it, Bob.
Okay.
I think I really just kind of want to go plot point by plot point fairly linearly, largely just to help myself feel confident that I have things straight, and maybe to help others who have it confused too. I put some extra work in, and if you've seen it and you're just wondering what the hell, then hopefully this can help straighten things out.
I like that, and because every synopsis here is going to end in a question mark, like, and then this happens. Anyway, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, but feel free to stop me to expand on any point at any time if we want to double click on something. No problem.
Cool.
Okay, so Cassius, played by the Keith Stanfield, lives in a garage at the beginning. He has this girlfriend named Detroit, but he's broke. The tale as old as time. That's what I'm trying to say. And so he starts out at a telemarketing place where they harp on endlessly about how you have to stick to the script, which I guess is how society keeps people down, is what this movie's trying to say.
Sure.
Even though it turns out there's very little sticking to the script in this movie.
Right.
So then we get to the first sort of joke gag thing. He learns to be super successful by using his white voice, which in this case happens to be David Cross's white voice, and he starts to make bank.
Yeah, and even if this made sense as more than just a bit, the movie doesn't, and nor does it need to do this because it's not a traditional movie, but it still kind of bugged me that it's like he's struggling in his telemarketing job, and then out of nowhere, Danny Glover is sitting next to him, and he's like, "Yo, you gotta use your white voice, and that's how you're gonna be successful." And he's like, "My white voice? Yeah, follow my lead. You do this." And then it turns out he can do it too. And then all of a sudden that propels him to the top, basically. I mean, we'll get to the next plot points, but I'm like, is this the first person who sat next to Danny Glover? And he's just intrinsically like good at white voice as a black man. Like, just like stick with me here, Logan. Like, why did this work? I mean, even in the made up universe, I know it's funny, but still just relative to any other person, why did Danny Glover talk to him, and why was this particular black person good at the white voice thing? Like, there's no explanation for any of that. It just sort of needs to be there as a plot mover forward thing.
No, I think if you're going to appreciate things like that, because your criticisms are very valid, you just have to accept this as sort of being like a mythology, like even a strange version of a hero's journey where just destiny chose this man to sit next to Danny Glover. I keep saying Donald Glover. But
right.
But destiny willed it so, Bob. That's the only thing I can say.
All right.
Because this is sort of like a myth. I don't know.
I'll go with that. Actually, that's a decent answer. That's better than I was expecting. So thank you.
Okay. But it's hilarious because he just starts making a lot of money. And that part's in the trailers, so I don't think that's going to surprise anyone. But I think it is a pretty funny and satirical point that that's certainly one way that just the way white people learn to grow up and talk is going to be an advantage in a lot of ways, and I think it makes the point pretty well.
Yep.
But while he's at this job, he also learns that there's like this underground labor movement that's working on organizing because they don't get a fair shake from the managers, and he's sort of torn at the beginning between being successful with his new gimmick and buying into the program and joining the Uniting Workers. So that's like the first conflict he has to figure out about.
Right. And it's a decent conflict. I mean, he just wants to put his head down and make some money and have a normal life and help his uncle pay off the house or whatever the driver was there. So I'm with you so far. Yeah, I like this.
But then they have this demonstration, and when the shit goes down and the workers like they refuse to work for, is it an hour or something like that?
Remember.
It's some time that affects things but isn't like absolutely devastating. The managers, they call Cash into the office and they tell him, "Oh, you're a power caller. You can go to, what do they call it, the top floor where the power callers."
Right.
And they woo him, they flatter him, they convince him, and he's like, "All right." He takes the gig, and he sort of just abandons his fellow workers, which also means things start to cool off with his girlfriend Detroit, who's more on the workers' side.
Yeah. Yeah, she's pretty involved for being just a girlfriend, but she's like hanging out with all of his friends with them. I mean, she's part of the group, even though she's the only one who doesn't actually work there because she's too busy being progressive and having art shows that are saving polar bears or whatever she's doing. Like, I don't know.
Fair enough. Again, I'm going to have to go to the mythological standpoint on this. I did hear, and we talked about this on our other show, or just do the small review.
Yeah.
That someone was saying she's like the conscience of the movie, and so when he's drawing near to his conscience and doing the right thing, their relationship is better. And I guess we're spoiling it, so I can say it now, but there'll be times when their relationship drifts apart and they aren't together, even though she'll still hook up with him, but that's maybe metaphorical for him being away from his conscience, but not so far away that he can't have some attachment, but
Yeah.
just symbolizes when he's doing the wrong thing and he needs to get his life together.
Yeah. I'll just put my 2 cents on that, which is to say, I thought he was a very relatable character, and I actually liked the main character in this movie. I thought he was pretty well written and was a good person to follow around. And most everyone else was a caricature, including his girlfriend, but from a mythological perspective, that's fine if that's a choice you're making to make some other points that are more important than realistic character building. So sounds good.
That's true, and people who have listened to us for a long time know that I'm sort of a sucker for heroes' journeys or archetypal things. So I hadn't thought about it quite so starkly, but you're right. He's like the only actual round character, and everyone else is like a caricature or an archetype, I guess, that he meets on his journey.
Yeah.
Anyway, one of the things that he gets to do now that he's a power caller is go to this party that's thrown by the CEO of Worry Free, which is just a huge company. And that CEO is played by Armie Hammer, who is chewing scenery like his life depended on it in this movie. And he is having a great time, and he's a jerk. He's a douchebag. But I still sort of just like him. He's got this charm about him, which I guess a lot of successful people, I mean, he's not exactly Steve Jobs, but Steve Jobs, obviously people felt conflicted about too. So there's a thing about the CEOs. You don't rise unless you have some appeal. And Armie Hammer really captured that duality really nicely.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of over the top as the movie went on, but especially in the beginning, he was this good amalgamation of like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. Pick your entrepreneur who's changing the world, is kind of a dick but kind of charming, wants to be your friend but also is serious at times, has really high expectations for what it needs to keep growing. It's kind of that caricature of like capitalism, and even a little bit of a dig, I would say, specifically at Silicon Valley, or maybe I'm just saying that because I live here, and the top 5 of the top 10, like 5 of them are all in the same neighborhood and make up like trillions of dollars of market cap. So I think and we're all supposed to be super hip and cool, and you dress more casually. It's not like the big banks or anything, or the finance people. So he was definitely in that vein, and I thought they did a pretty good job portraying that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, because he's a little bit younger. Like if you're in banking or in manufacturing or something, usually you're older by the time you get to be a CEO, and so he's younger. So that's more Silicon Valley model. And there's,
Right.
I guess you could call it technology, the way he transforms people. So yeah, well,
Right.
I think probably Silicon Valley is the type of tech CEO they're looking at with him.
Yeah, but he was kind of likable, except for when he wasn't. He was definitely that type of friend where you're like, hey, I got this friend Jimmy. Like, Bob, don't bring Jimmy to the party. Nobody's fun. Yeah, but when he gets a little, it's
That's
kind
a
of one of those guys.
great way of putting it. And speaking of him at the party, um, this party is a ton of weird stuff happens there. For one, it's like all drugs and orgies, which
Yep.
we all assume that's what happens at every single party hosted by a decadent super rich guy.
Kind
Um,
of. Yeah, sure.
but it's over the top, even if that really happens at some of them. This one was definitely over the top. And then Steve, the CEO, just like asks Cash to rap because, like, of course, can't all black people rap on command? And it turns
Yeah.
out that no, not all black people can rap. And Cash's rap is basically just the N word and the word shit, just like repeated over and over again. But it's sort of funny, Boots Riley being a rapper, because it's actually kind of catchy at the same time.
And it's also kind of like the way you might. I'm gonna get myself in trouble a little bit, but I just want to say, if you were a white person writing how rap can sometimes sound, this isn't too far from what you might come up with. But since it's a black dude who's the writer and director, and it's just self-aware enough, like it's just funny because you're like, yep, that could be definitely straight from real rap out there. So I don't know if you're following my point, but I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was a caricature and the satire and offensive and funny all at the same time. So that was a pretty good scene.
Right.
So all right, so where are we? Oh, so anyway, he winds up in the back room with Steve, the CEO, and apparently there's this fusing catalyst that Cash finds out about. Oh, Cash actually finds out about it by accident. He has to go to the bathroom after snorting some coke, and he
Yeah.
goes to the wrong room, and he sees, of all things, a half horse, half human being, and all of a sudden, this is like where shit gets really weird.
Yeah. So just to reiterate what Logan just said, we're spoiling this movie and you don't need to watch it. All of a sudden you hear from the corner, help me, some sort of like, somebody moaning and there's a problem. And then he's just in a mansion and he goes down the wrong corridor. He opens the door, a half human, half horse falls out. We get a really zoomed in extended shot of its penis, his penis. Of course, it's a he. Why
Yeah,
do I
horses
have to?
can be boys,
Yeah,
males at
I
least.
mean, what do they call them? Esquitarians later. There's a word that's
Esquistrapians. No, equestrasapiens. There we go.
equestrian. Guys, all I'm telling you is the horse penis kind of takes up a lot of the screen, and it's ridiculous. And then I'm like, I didn't glance over at Logan, but in my head, I'm like, what just happened? What are we watching? And then he just goes back into the room to talk to the CEO caricature guy and be like, what the fuck did I just see? Right? That's
Yeah,
the
and
next thing that
so
happens.
and so Steve's like, "Oh, whatever, dude. I'm glad you saw it. So I'll show you this video."
Yeah. Then he's like, oh, I can explain everything. You've seen it. You've seen it out of order. If you would have just waited, why did you pick the wrong room? And
It's
our
like the
friend,
order. The order is the only weird thing about
yeah,
this.
I know, right? And he's like, if you just would have watched this video first, it makes perfect sense. And then he's like, okay, I'll watch your video. And so then we see this video, and I'm like, it's satire, but even the satire, it's like, what is this video?
Yeah, just about how people can be transformed into horses and or half horses, I guess, and do a lot of labor. And I can't remember. Do they like it better that way? I can't remember. It's been a couple weeks since we saw this movie. Anyway, but it was very propaganda-like,
Yeah.
making it seem like a good thing for everyone involved.
And it was weird propaganda because it was also animated and kind of trippy, like maybe you would appreciate it if you were high. And I just remember like it had a naked cartoon character with her boobs out talking about like just the whole thing was very off-putting and very weird and like from somebody's mind. I don't know if this was part of the writer director's vision or if he just like handed it off to somebody and is like, can you make a trippy cartoon that's propaganda for why horse penis half human creatures make for better labor in the modern world? Sure, dude, I'll get right on that. Like,
yeah, well, and it's certainly, obviously, the statement is that, you know, capitalism can dehumanize people and only value them for their labor and stuff like that. And it definitely is making that point.
yeah, in its own little way, it sure is making that point.
And you keep talking about the horse penis. And that's
Yeah.
what I find the funniest part about that is because Steve wants him to like infiltrate and figure out what's going on with him for like 5 years. And his pitch is, well, I will give you $100 million, but you're going to have a horse cock. That's the best part.
Wait for it. It's just like this awkward pause. And then Cassius is like, what? He's like, let me get this straight. So you want to pay me for 5 years, and then you're going to give me a special agent that turns me back, like a special formula that turns me back into my normal self.
Diffuser antidote special sauce or something like that.
And then, of course, like any normal person, he was like, how do I know you're going to do that? And then, of course, he's like, wait a second. Is the cocaine you gave me before I knew all of this, was that real cocaine? And he's like, yeah, why wouldn't it be? And there's just a lot of stuff going on in the scene. And needless to say, Cassius doesn't really want to sign up. Did he say I got to think about it? Or how does he weasel out of that? I don't remember how it transitioned to the next scene.
I think he just basically declines and's like, no, I got to go. And somehow Steve lets him go.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds about right. Sure.
That wasn't the main plot point, how he gets out of there and how he declines.
We're talking capitalist, Logan. They let people leave when they want. I mean, it's freedom of whatever. It's not like we're forcing you to do anything. In fact, $100 million is a good deal.
Yeah, I mean, admit it. Wasn't part of you thinking $100 million? Maybe. That's a lot of money.
There's a part of me that kind of wanted to negotiate that would have been like, listen, I think I can rise through the ranks and become their leader and solve all your problems in a year. Let's call it 80 million for a year. No, I don't know.
And then I just have like flash to Don Draper. So we're negotiating.
Right.
Yeah. Part of me thought about it though, if I were in Cash's shoes.
Yeah. I mean, sure. For 2 seconds. Yeah. I mean, yeah, but then he just leaves and he's like, okay, what the fuck was that? What am I going to do? How do I talk to people about this? He has to go back to normal life of being a power caller, right?
But the thing is, he finds himself with some video that he must have taken somewhere on his phone.
Right.
Of horse people wanting to be helped and Armie Hammer being like, nope, get back to work. I'm going to turn you into glue or something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember. There was some explanation for how that ended up on his phone, but somehow during that party or something, he got some of this.
He texted it to Detroit, his girl, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but they didn't really explain. But he's texted it to her because he's like, there's some crazy shit happening. You got to see this. I don't know how to explain it. And he actually did a pretty believable job as a person who would be in that position. And then once she sees the video, she's like, oh, you got to get this out. You got to tell people what's really happening with this company and that sort of thing. And so they derive a plan to do that. And then shit gets weird for a second time.
Yeah, because to do that, he has to like go to TV shows, but it's all these like weird game shows who just want to humiliate him before they'll show it. So at one point he has to get like beaten up on air, and another one he has to get like lowered into an actual pile of shit.
Yeah. So this is, again, more satire, and just in this new world, there's no real TV. Everything's reality TV, and it's extreme versions of just like, you know, punching people in the face, literally. And I guess it was kind of funny. It didn't seem as funny as some of the stuff. I felt like we were already like 3 acts into the ridiculousness of the satire. This part of it, I was like starting to get a little like, okay, get on with it. This is where it started to get messy and was trying to say something about the state of TV. And I'm like, that's the least of your worries, movie. You don't really need to do that theme here, but whatever.
Fair enough. I don't think I was completely out on the movie yet, but it was like, okay, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt here, but you're on a, you know, short leash.
Right.
And then, of course, the thing that happens is it ends up being super good for Worry Free, the company, and their stock goes like way up. Yeah, poor Cash. He thought he could make a difference, but no one can make a difference.
No one can make a difference, and society just takes what they're fed to them. This is where it became, I want to say, in my head, I started invoking commentary on Trump, you know, and Trump's America. But then I read after the fact that the script was written before Trump actually came into the scene and became president, which I can take Boots Riley at his word on that. But at the same time, it did feel like that's an interesting coincidence. Like, because I felt like the fact that you could go on to public TV shows and say, I have proof that somebody's abusing their power in the world by creating half human, half horses and then mistreating them. And then that wouldn't do anything to society because society's too obsessed with just seeing stupid reality TV. I was like, there's a Trump parallel here somewhere, right?
Yeah, well, it's Trump's symptom or cause, and that's beyond the scope of this podcast.
Sure, yeah.
But it could have just been in the water, and he picked it up, even though Trump picked up the same thing.
Right.
Anyway, so after all this not making a difference, Cash gets jolted back into joining the movement of the oppressed people, and even gets back together with Detroit. And so they got this big demonstration, this big protest planned. And I am a little fuzzy on the details, but somehow Cash is there and he gets put into a police van and he watches the riot continue with all of a sudden Equestrisapiens start coming out into play and they start, I don't know, winning the riot, if you can win a riot. And they like save Cash and his friends and it's the world sees them and it's just weird.
Yeah, it's super weird. It doesn't make any sense because having more strength as a creature because you're a half horse, maybe you can win a localized fight at a bar or something, but I mean, the police would just call in helicopters, get tear gas, would do all sorts of stuff, but they made it seem like the revolution is happening. You know, how dare you, society, agree that horse people can be brought into this world like you've done. This is what happens when you create horse people, Logan. They revolt and they're going to take over. And I was thinking, like, this is probably the least plausible version of how this would play out, even granted the premise.
Exactly, because I can't go back to it's a myth, it's a story at this point, because they're trying to have it like too real at the same time as having it be figurative.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? And we also completely skipped over his girlfriend, Detroit. There's like a huge extended scene where she does like a benefit for a good cause. And I don't know. And like, what was it? Sheep's blood balloons are thrown at her and she's kind of naked on stage. And I was like, this probably has something to do with something as a metaphor for something, but it's just weird.
I think I blocked that out. It didn't make it in my review because I have no idea what's going on there.
Right. I'm just kind of throwing that in for more color between, the horse penis being introduced and then the uprising of the horse people. Anyway, so back to, we still have more to go here. It's still not quite over.
Yeah. Okay, we have the riot, but the riot just ends and everyone goes home. Real life seems to be back as it
I know. So then again, reality versus myth, I don't know which it is and what it's saying in either format, but yeah, that horse people riot seems like a big deal, but then there's almost this resolution as if like it's a falling action after the climax of a movie where people are just saying, oh, we had a good time, patting each other on the back. Let's go back to regular life, telemarketing. That was crazy. The world did that for a little bit, but and then.
But there's more.
Yeah, and then it just, then what happens?
Well, so we go back. Next thing we see is Cash. He's back in his garage, but it's like a decorated and stylish garage. And Detroit's there. They're back together. Life seems great because he, did the right thing.
I like to think of it as a hypocrisy garage because Detroit's back with him, but it's all the capitalist stuff that they're enjoying. But it's in a garage, Logan. So I'm not sure if the movie did that on purpose and is making the point I'm making, but if they're not, they should be.
Yeah, I was unclear. He's still working off the money he made as a power collar. Isn't that right?
Yeah. Okay. So he didn't take the.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but just where did he get the money? It's not the 100 million, I don't think.
No, he didn't do the 100 million because he's a good person. But it seems like he was just riding that line of regular employee that his girlfriend, AKA his conscience, was okay with. But at the same time, that garage was decked out in the way that she didn't like his past life when it was just in a nicer, higher floor apartment. So I was all sorts of confused by what's okay.
But we're just sort of vamping and stalling here because what happens, his nose starts to get weird and it starts to look like a horse's. He's turning, Bob.
Yeah. So he turns into a horse at the end, the very end of the movie. It's like the last scene before we cut to the first credits, right?
Yeah, well, we have one little thing after that, and that's when we've got a bunch of these Equestriapians led by Cash, who's a full horse now, and they're like leading a raid into Steve Life's house.
Yeah.
They're pissed, and they're going to get revenge or something, and then
Yeah.
we get the end of credits.
Yeah. And just to think it through logistically. So giving the movie the benefit of the doubt, if the horse people were successful in circumventing police control of a riot and really taking the power back to the people, then you'd think maybe a billionaire in a castle that he lives in would probably have some way to make it so horse people can't raid his house.
Especially one who has built his fortune on creating these horse people and probably knows a lot about them.
Yeah, there's just so many things that make no sense whatsoever. Like, what is this raid and how is it different and what is it going to accomplish compared to the previous one? And again, more with the hypocrisy. I'm calling it hypocrisy because I don't know what to call it, Logan. But like, if the movie was kind of in the falling action resolution stage and we were going back to normal, it was almost like because none of us are horse people, so we get to ignore those problems. Like being horse is the new black or something. Is that what maybe we were being taught?
Yeah, but you have a good point because that first resolution, I was about to try to start processing it, but they gave us this new super bizarre thing, and so then that just sort of like occupied all my processing the previous resolution energy, and so I'm just left unresolved, totally confused.
Yeah, and then the movie ends with more questions than answers. Let's just put it that way. And like, yeah, just recounting it all here with you, like, I had things to say, and I think we talked about some of those things, but in the end, I can't really walk away knowing what I learned or understanding what this scathing review of capitalism is about. Anyway.
Yeah, it's good ideas. We dehumanize people more than we should, maybe a lot more. I guess I don't know more to say. We said some things. Anything more you do want to say before we set this aside as a interesting but failed experiment?
I'd like to think we're still kind of woke. No, I don't have anything to say. It's a pass. I think you probably got what you need out of this review. That's the service we're providing here.
Sure is.
You really don't need to watch the movie. Sorry, Boots Riley. I'm really interested in watching your second movie. Don't worry. People like Logan and I, we'll keep watching your movies, but you got to understand why. I'm talking to him as if he's going to watch this, but you got to understand why we're telling people you got everything you need to know based on just our conversation here. But you can check it out if it sounds interesting. Go for it.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't hate it. I just was confused.
Right. Me too.
All right. Well, let's get to our top 5-ish list. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the list that I want to go with, Bob, is movies that make me say, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
WTF movies here,
including this one, right? This is definitely in this category.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the idea is we make a list that this movie we just spoiled could be on, right?
Right. That's perfect. Exactly.
Okay. So I'm going to go in my order. Well, yeah, I'll nominate roughly in my order of how good they are. Of all the movies that make me say, "What the fuck?" How good are they? I'm going to start with some of my best ones.
Just to be clear, we're trying to find the best "what the fuck" movies where they completely are insane, but at the same time are awesome. Which wasn't this movie, but if it were to be in that category, what would it be up against?
Yeah, so it'll be a little lower on the list.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to go with my favorite "what the fuck" movie that I thought of was Eastern Promises.
Oh, I didn't think of that one. That is definitely a you movie. I think I did see that. That's the one with Viggo Mortensen from back 7 years ago.
Yep, and it's weird. And I remember I would drag people to see it because I like disagreed with people about the ending, and people didn't usually agree with me. But it was a very weird movie. But I liked it a lot. Personally.
It was weird. I didn't love it, but I did like it more than Sorry to Bother You. So I approve. Sounds good.
All right, throw us a nominee, Bob.
I'm going to go with The Disaster Artist. James Franco's joint before he got Me Too'd. It's kind of a stranger than fiction tale. It's based on a true story about a really bizarre guy that I don't have to recap it, but I'm just saying It just came out last year, and it had a lot of what the fuck aspects to it. But I really liked it. I thought it was a good movie.
All right. I can't remember how I put it. Looking back, I think it's maybe on the lower half of my list, but good choice. Second best for me, Spring Breakers, my man.
I knew it. Dude, this is like so low on my list. It's like barely above Sorry to Bother You.
But it is a WTF movie, and
Yeah.
how. It is so weird and so trippy, but I felt like even though it's not entirely successful, sort of like Sorry to Bother You, it resonated with me more somehow, so it's higher on my list.
All right. And that has James Franco in it too, which is funny.
That's true.
Actually, I think I misstated. I think I probably would say Sorry to Bother You for me is better. But
Okay.
anyway,
What's next?
I'm going to go with Thoroughbreds. Did you see Thoroughbreds? Did we review this together?
I'm blanking. Thoroughbreds? I don't think so. I don't think I did.
It's writer-director Corey Finley. It's about these two girls that are trying to plan a murder of one of their stepfathers. This is a good movie. You got to check this out. It's kind of bizarre, and it's a lot of dialogue. But then where it ends up isn't quite what you're expecting. It has a few what the fuck moments, like serious ones. And it's I think it's also Anton Yelchin's last movie that he was in. Rest in peace. But he plays a great character in this. So if you want to see a what the fuck movie involving two teenage girls scheming on how to kill someone, Thoroughbreds. It's a good movie.
All right. I'm going to go with next The Neon Demon by Nicholas Winding Refn, or however you say that guy's name.
I never saw that. That'd look too weird.
Yeah, well, it's weird. That's why it belongs on a list like this. Elle Fanning is like this aspiring model. And, well, we're not mini-reviewing or anything, but shit gets super weird. He's also the guy that did Drive with Ryan Gosling, which is
Oh, yeah. It was a weird one, too. Yeah.
Weirder, though.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Okay, what do you got?
I'm going to go with The Death of Stalin.
Okay.
You might say this is still what the fucky to me. I'm going to call it that because it's this dark comedy, political satire on what happened when Stalin died and how the power structure in Russia. But it's like done as a play with all of the characters over the top, a lot of violence, a lot of crazy stuff. It's from the Veep people and In the Loop.
Armando Iannucci.
Yeah, that's his name. You're not going to quibble with me. I'm if you're happy with this being a what the fuck movie, I think it still is. It's not quite as crazy as some of these others, but it's good, and it is kind of in that category. It's hard to recommend.
Okay, we're getting kind of high. I mean, the Sorry to Bother You is what I'm putting on as my final one. It's my least favorite of the ones that I thought of. But what we've nominated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 now. Do you have any more you're trying to put on there?
Yeah, I kind of want to do two more.
Okay.
And I'll do them quickly. So Annihilation, that was kind of what the fuck. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
Natalie Portman. It was trying to do all sorts of crazy shit with its sci-fi premise and super ambitious.
I feel like it was a little crazy shit, but okay.
And then Raw. Did you ever see Raw about
I don't think I did.
A young girl realizing that she likes.
I remember you reviewing it. I did not see it.
Yeah, it's basically about cannibalism, but in a very tasteful way, if that makes any sense. Well, it's not tasteful, actually. It's very disturbing, but it's crazy. It's a crazy movie. So there you go. Where does that leave us?
The hard part about this is I don't think we agreed on any of these movies except that we were pretty meh about Sorry to Bother You. So
it's at the bottom, which is because the movie we're talking about always has to be on the list, even if in this case it's the very bottom.
What I'm saying is no, because you ranked like Spring Breakers and Eastern Promises super low, even though they're super high for me. So they average to about in the range. That's what I'm saying.
I'll let you put them in the middle there somewhere. Eastern Promises definitely is higher than Spring Breakers. Come on.
Okay, so we'll do. I think how this is going to work is the Disaster Artist first.
Okay.
Then I guess Eastern Promises.
All right, I'll give it to you since we both saw it. But I think Thoroughbreds is way better than Spring Breakers, if I could say so.
Yeah,
myself.
I'm definitely going to put that there.
Okay.
Thoroughbreds. I'll even give it to you ahead of Eastern Promises, just as I'm trying to make this list on the fly. This is a really weird list because we feel so differently about them. Okay, so Disaster Artist, Thoroughbreds, Eastern Promises.
Then the rest.
I guess we'll say Sorry to Bother You. Then I want to put The Neon Demon. And then maybe Death of Stalin.
Oh, you want to put Sorry to Bother You all that high? I think it's still pretty
Okay,
low.
then
I'd put Death of Stalin, Annihilation, Raw, wherever you want to put Spring Breakers. Sorry to Bother You.
okay. So here's our final list: The Disaster Artist, Thoroughbreds, Eastern Promises, Death of Stalin, Spring Breakers, Annihilation, Raw. Sorry to Bother You.
That sounds good.
Okay.
I could co-sign that.
All right, sounds
This
good.
this is a what the fuck list, and it's true to its form. It's both a list of that and kind of a what the fucky sort of thing in and of itself. So there you
Hard to rank, yeah. So there you go. But we made it definitive for you.
go.
So what's next week? I know we've got Black Klansman we'd like to do, and we have to do Succession as soon as we can too.
Yeah. I think we need to do both of those. Black Klansman looks interesting. So let's cue that up for sure.
All right, sounds good. And I guess maybe we'll do 2 episodes next week, just like this week.
Why not? The people need to hear about it.
That's right. Well, there you go. Sorry to bother you. Spoiled. And if you listened without watching it first, we hope you can now fake it fairly well in whatever social situations you may need to. And that is this episode of the Practically Culture Spoilercast. Join us next week as we spoil probably Black Klansman and maybe Succession too. And we have the usual top 5-ish list, and we chat about what we're watching. You can find more from us at practicallyculture.com, on YouTube, and in your favorite podcast app. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Logan Bo. Bob's at Bob Caswell. Send us a message, ask us a question, let us know how you like the show. Come back and get your pop culture spoiled. Thanks for rocking with us.
Have a good one.